guys, this is Carol, and we're here to talk about autism, and we're here with Matt Senn of WrestleLife Radio, who happens to be my husband.
It's true.
Welcome,
It's
Matt.
true. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad that you're here. Matt's here to tell us about what it was like to join a family with autism.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So how long have you been part of our family, Matt?
Oh, let's see. We've officially been married 10 years in July, but really 11 and a half, honestly.
And so you've known Jesse, my little brother.
Whole
Jesse
time.
is autistic, and you've known him all that time.
And yeah,
Good.
I met him 2 weeks after we met, I think.
And he was 11 at the time. He's now 21.
Mm-hmm.
So what we want to do is have a conversation about what that was like
Okay.
to come into the family and become part of the family, and what insights you can share with us coming from sort of the outside
Okay.
and becoming a part of the autism world.
Okay.
And what you could tell people who maybe don't know a lot about autism yet, and what you could share with us.
Sounds great.
Okay,
Do
so
it.
first question is, do you remember what you thought when I first told you that my brother had autism?
Yeah. So I didn't know a whole lot about autism. Matter of fact, I only can remember, and I'm sure I've met quite a few, but I can only remember specifically one person that had autism before I met Jesse. And it was a little boy that went to our church when I was young, and very, very different. So I didn't know really what to expect, to be honest. I wasn't educated on it at all.
Okay, so you didn't have a lot of knowledge. Did you do any research, or did you just wait to meet him?
No. I'm not that kind of person.
Okay. Okay. What were your thoughts when you first met him? You just said you didn't really have expectations, so...
No, so Jesse's always been a very interesting kid, and now he's an interesting adult. So when I first met Jess, he was 11 years old, and he acted younger. I mean, and I kind of expected something similar to that, I guess. But, he acted like a younger kid because with autism, it's a development, it slows your development process, correct? Is that the proper words?
That's a way to think of it. It does affect the way that the
Okay.
brain develops and communicates.
So he acted younger and acted like a kid, and I love kids, and I'm basically a big kid. Right now I'm a 33-year-old kid, so I don't know, I didn't think anything of it, honestly. We just had a good time.
Okay. Do you think that there's anything that you would like to have known ahead of time? Do you remember anything where, I don't know, something was not easy?
Not really. I remember you telling me the only thing that I really needed to know is you said he really likes to sniff people's hair, and he will sniff your hair. Are you okay with that? And I'm the kind of person where I have no bubble, perfectly fine. We can be, I'm a pastor's kid, so I grew up hugging everyone whether I wanted to or not. So I've never had a bubble, and I had no problem with it. But I am glad you told me that, because if I would have walked in that house and he would have just randomly started sniffing my hair, it might have freaked me out a little bit. But I expected it, and there was no issues at all.
Okay. So what were your thoughts? What about me? Was I helpful to you? Was I very overprotective? I know I feel like I'm protective of him.
Yeah.
Did you have any impression of me as a sibling of an autistic person?
Nothing out of the ordinary. I think the one thing I do specifically remember, and it's not about you, it's actually about your mom. You had told me, like, we had a whole conversation about it, and then when I walked in, your mom said, "Hi," Jesse was there, greeting me immediately, because that's who Jesse is, and she said, "He'll be in your face, he has autism," and I said, "No problem, I have already been told this information, and that's the only thing that I specifically remember. I do remember you treated him just like he was I don't want to say normal, but a person without autism, which I think is really cool. You treat him just like you would anyone else. And, I didn't know how I should treat him because I've never been around anything like that before, so I didn't know if I should treat him more like a younger child or if I should treat him how, at his current age. And I've learned what to do over the years, and it takes time. It took a lot of time for me. It took years, honestly, but yeah, I think we've got there.
I think that's helpful feedback. I think that's why we're doing these videos and talking to you about it, is to help people understand what to do. Because I think a lot of people have questions and don't know a lot. And so it's not just about raising acceptance for autism. It's about, or awareness and acceptance. It's inclusion and really reaching out to people.
Right.
But it's hard to reach out to somebody if you've never experienced what it's like to be around that person. Right. And so this is helpful, I think, to talk about. Yeah. So thank you.
That's why I'm here.
That's right. Goal. That's why you're here. So we always say that if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism.
Correct.
Because all people with autism are very different. Autism is a huge spectrum, and so you can fall anywhere on that spectrum, from very moderate to very severe, and everybody's different. So I think you know, knowing Jesse, you know what he is like.
Right.
And I think that's helpful to meet other people who have autism, but at the same time, it's a totally new experience every time.
Correct.
Do you agree? And you've had the opportunity to meet other people.
Yeah, so now that I'm older, I've met other people that have autism. I've worked in my line of business with people that care for autistic adults and children, so I've been able to experience that. Someone else in your family actually has autism that I was able to meet, and there's just been a lot. And what I think people that have no idea what to think is like, oh, Rain Man, right? Or is it Radio is the other one? And you're like, oh, that's autism, but it's not. Autism is a very, how can I put it? It's not the fact that it is such a wide spectrum. So an autistic person is unique, just like I'm unique, and just like my wife is unique. You know, if someone has autism, that doesn't mean anything. Like you could say, I like wrestling, right? Because I run a wrestling podcast and I have a passion for wrestling. But that, if you tell someone, oh, that's Matt, he likes wrestling, you won't know who I am. It's the same thing with Jesse or anyone else that has autism. Just because they have autism, it doesn't define who they are. It is just a part of that person.
That's a really nice way to explain that. I like that. So what do you think, thinking back to 11 years ago,
okay,
what you knew about autism was very limited then. I think what a lot of people knew was very limited then.
Yeah.
We didn't know anything until he was diagnosed, and that was 20 years ago. So going from 20 years ago to 11 years ago to now, what do you think about the current status of awareness and acceptance for people with autism? What people, the general, say in America, or even just in Jacksonville, Florida, where we live. Do you think that the overall awareness of autism and what autism is for the general populace, has it improved over time? Are people becoming more aware and more understanding, or are we a long way away from our goal? What do you think?
I think both of those things are true. I think that from 10 years ago, and I can't speak from 20 years ago, I mean, I guess I didn't know anything about it, but I didn't know anything about it 10 years ago. I think from 10 years ago, there's a lot more awareness. I think there's been more people diagnosed, and I'm not a scientist. I haven't done no research. This is just from what I have personally experienced. I feel like more people have been diagnosed. So with that, obviously, comes awareness because those people have friends and they have families. However, there is a long, long way to go. I tell you, I deal, and I don't want to name names, but in the company that I work for, I have some clients that have, run autism homes. I have multiple ones. I'm actually currently in the process of volunteering in another one, and and I'm sorry I'm not able to find the proper words, but there is a lot more that needs to be done, because just for the sheer fact that people still don't even understand what it is. A lot of people don't know what autism is. They just know that it's this, wide area of a lot of people that maybe experience it. Like, for example, I have a friend of mine that's an adult, and he is a highly functioning autistic. He has Asperger's. So this is not a great example, but if you've watched The Big Bang Theory, and everyone has, a lot of people say Dr. Sheldon Cooper has Asperger's. Not because he's very smart, but because of his social anxiety and the way that he doesn't really understand certain cues. And I don't necessarily agree with that, maybe in earlier episodes, but that's neither here nor there. That's not what we're here to talk about. But I think that we just need to really express, the differences in everyone and how widespread it is, and people that have experienced it like us need to make sure that we are open to helping people understand.
I think that's really well said. And it kind of answers my last question is what do you think that we can do, and those of us who are within the community of the autism world, what we can do.
Right.
So I think it's a lot of it is about being open. And again, that's why we're doing this, is trying to just sort of get the word out and start to say, hey, we're willing to talk about it if you're willing to listen and if you want to learn and be a part. And it's hard to do. It's hard for me. I knew that meeting the right person was going to take somebody who was willing to be a part of this world.
Right.
And so I had to be willing to be open, and that came after being very protective and very close with him for a long time. And
Right.
so now, is trying to kind of say, okay, if people are going to be aware, they're going to have to see and
Right.
hear from people like us who can talk about it and share and say this is what it's like.
Yeah.
So.
I think one thing not to do is not try to hide it. And I don't think a lot of people hide it due to shame, but they hide it because they don't really understand how other people will take it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that a lot of families and friends that have someone in their life who's autistic need to understand, is that most people are open and most people are kind and most people will understand, especially if you explain it, because everyone has issues in their lives, and whether or not it's someone that has autism or some other set of issues, or if someone has maybe they're going through something in their life that someone else doesn't understand. I think the reality is we're all unique, and I know I've said that a time or two, but I think that it's very important to lean on someone that and you trust, whether that be your church family or whether that be your closest set of friends. Because people, I tell you, in the past 10 years that I've known Jess, we've introduced them to a lot of people, and they constantly ask us about him. They often get him gifts at Christmas. He talks about them, and he gets to see them, every once in a while. A good little bit of time. So he's able to go to church, and everyone at church loves him. So yeah, I think having that set of close relationships is also very important.
I think that's a really good point to make, especially to our viewers who are starting their journey in the autism world, that the media gets it wrong most of the time. And TV shows and movies and things where everybody is mean, frankly.
Yeah.
Most people, like you said, are not that way, and most people are kind and they want to be caring and they want to be a part of your life. They don't know how.
Yeah.
And so it's our job to help them to know how, if they want to.
And sometimes people are uncomfortable, and that's okay, as long as they're not rude or they're not being judgy. When you think of it this way, if you are going into an experience and you have no experience with what is happening, it may make you feel a little uncomfortable, or maybe you're doing something in your job that's new and you've never dealt with it before. You might get that tingling sensation through your body, and you're like, man, I'm not really sure what to do here. It's similar to that, and you may have friends and family that you introduce your autistic child or sibling to, and they may seem a little uncomfortable. Just because that's the case, that doesn't mean they're judging you or judging your family or your autistic, loved one. It just means that maybe they don't really know how to react. And I feel like even at first, I was a little bit like that. And as time goes on, you just realize who they are and you learn them as a person. It's really not an issue.
Yeah, I think that's a really great perspective.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you for being with us.
Absolutely. I've had fun.
Would you like to tell us where we can find you?
Ooh, I'm Matt Senn from WrestleLife Radio. You can follow us on Facebook.com/WrestleLife Radio, the same as Instagram.com/WrestleLife Radio, Twitter.com/WrestleLife Pod, and search for WrestleLife Radio on Spotify, iTunes, Radio Public, Google Play, Anchor. Honestly, if it's a podcast platform, we're probably on it.
Nice. And you can find me guest hosting on a couple of
it's true.
Of
Just a good job.
WrestleLife podcasts. So go
100%.
Go look them up. All right. Well, thanks for being here.
I'm proud to be here anytime.
All right. And we like to say, God loves you, we love you, and have a good day.
Later, guys.